Welcome to Celebrate Aging. I'm Vicki Marthaler, your hostess here on the Ecumen Detroit Lakes campus, and we are reviewing the history of Ecumen Detroit Lakes, celebrating their 50 years. This is part 2. The idea and dream of a Detroit Lakes retirement home morphs into a reality in October of 1963. The bidding was open for contractors who would be interested in building a new state-of-the-art facility that would be available to care for those in the community that would find themselves in need. Adolphson and Peterson of Minneapolis, who recently built the Detroit Lakes High School, Rossman Elementary, and the District State Highway Department building in Detroit Lakes, received the bid for general contractor. The construction crew for this project would continue to be Detroit Lakes area men. Knaps and Grover Plumbing and Heating of Park Rapids was the mechanical contractor, and Edling Electric of Fergus Falls was given the work of wiring this ultra-modern facility. The picture of the groundbreaking shows Dr. W.C. Dodds brandishing a shovel, and he was surrounded by men of the cloth. Pastor Salmon Bass of the First Methodist Church and vice president of the Detroit Lakes Ministerial was there. Pastor Irvin Malm, who was serving Trinity. Pastor Elmer Johnson, who was serving Lund and Uppsala Lutheran churches, which are in rural Detroit Lakes. And Pastor Walter Carlson represented the Red River Valley Synod. Also present were H.R. Magnuson of the Board of Social Ministries and our own Mel Soderberg, who presided at the ceremony and gave this invitation. We welcome you back in approximately 1 year for the dedication of this building. With a $450,000 grant from the U.S. Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, close to $200,000 raised in this community, and the backing of the Board of Social Ministries of the Red River Valley Synod, the 64-bed home broke ground on November the 3rd, 1963. The Detroit Lakes High School band provided music at that groundbreaking, and the Mrs. J.C. served a coffee hour at Trinity following the ceremony. The contractors were ready to roll up their sleeves and get to work. It would be 1 year down the road that the doors would then open in October of 1964. There was much work to do. In May of 1964, Steve Brazzi was named the first business manager. Mr. Brazzi defined the scope of the project. This is not a rest home. This is a home for people who are in need of nurse care, and round-the-clock nursing care will be provided. He also emphasized that although the facility would be operated by the Lutheran Church of America, this will be a non-denominational home. In June, there was a call for the community to suggest names for this wonderful facility. And in July, the Board of Social Ministries announced it would be Emmanuel, which means God with us. That would be the chosen name. In September, the staff began to take shape. Mrs. Rosella Anderson, who was working at the time at Sunnyside and Lake Park, was named the first supervisory nurse. Mr. Leonard Oman was named the chief engineer. And Reverend Irvin Malm, who was serving Trinity at the time, would be the chaplain. Emmanuel would be a 64-bed nursing home. There would be 30 single rooms, and 17 rooms were designed for 2 people who would share the space. In September, that's about a month before those doors came open, there were 49 applications that had been received. The average age of the applicants was 73 years old, and compared to current day average of 86 years. There were 4 couples applying, and many of those first applicants were from nursing homes quite a distance away. But they were people who had been residents of Becker County, so they were anxious to return to their hometown and be in the midst of their Detroit Lakes family and friends. Business manager Brazzi continued to lift up the fact that private and welfare cases would be accepted. He also announced that because of the expected demand, a second building project would begin immediately once those first doors were opened. there would be an expansion of another 40 beds. Emmanuel proved to be an economic boon to the area. This project provided work for local contractors and carpenters during the winter, with payroll and materials topping over $120,000. Of those businesses involved in the project, Clarence Drews stated in a newspaper ad, "I take pride in and appreciate the fact that I was called to do the excavating, grading, landscaping, sodding, and seeding at the Emmanuel Nursing Home site." Other businesses who took part were Windsweep, a fine home furnishing and interior design store from Battle Lake. And from Detroit Lakes, the businesses included Lampert, Ready Mix Concrete, People's Natural Gas, and Knightsky Concrete Products, that included in its newspaper ad, "We are proud to have supplied the cement building blocks for this welcome addition to our community." And what a welcome addition Emmanuel was. With its first 64 beds, 45 residents moved in the very first month of October 1964. The women outnumbered the men, and some were ambulatory while others were in need of total nursing care. Most were longtime residents of Becker County, and they represented many different faiths. The building itself boasted of 3 lounges, 2 that were carpeted, 2 fireplaces, an activity room that could be reached by either using an elevator or a stairway, and Emmanuel even had its very own intercom system. State-of-the-art, ultra-modern. In fact, this was written, "An intercom system located at the Central Nurses Station at Emmanuel will allow any and all of the rooms in the home to be monitored. This device may also inform the nurse on night duty as to which of the exit doors are opened. At 2 of the entrances will be an outside call system, which may be answered by the Central Nurses Station, and the nurse on duty may admit the person at the door by simply depressing an automatic door release button. Fire doors of the home are held by an electric magnet, and when the fire alarm completes its rings, the doors automatically shut." Well, the doors of Emmanuel opened the care business on October the 26th, 1964. And by February 11th of 1965, not even a full 4 months, Emmanuel was filled to capacity, and there were 33 names on the waiting list. By November of 1965, work will then begin on the first of many additions to Emmanuel. That first addition will add 27 rooms. 13 of them will be doubles and 14 will be single rooms, so the total number of people to be served reaches 104. There was a Detroit Lakes Governing Committee that was created that would make recommendations and suggestions to the Board of Social Ministries. Parnell Sanford served on that committee, as well as P.A. Norum, Dr. Dodds, John O. Pearson, Mrs. G.J. Olson, James Evans, Dr. Dwayne Wething, Tom Keenan, Mrs. Winston Larson, Kenneth Mickelberg, and R.W. Irvin. George Scherzer, of Callaway, and Merle Frazee of Pelican Rapids also served on that board. Parnell Sanford says, "Emmanuel Nursing Home has proven to be a great asset to the community, both from a humanitarian and an economic standpoint." Yes, the first edition held an open house and a dedication in August of 1966. And for the past 50 years, Emmanuel hasn't stopped opening its doors and dedicating its facility to the care of those in this community.